Hey guys, Captain Ensign here. So in today's video, I'll be talking about Skull Island, The Birth of Kong, and Godzilla Aftershock. Though Birth of Kong says it's a prequel, it's actually a sequel to Skull Island, and Godzilla Aftershock is a prequel. So, yes, so Skull Island, Birth of Kong takes place in 95 or 96. The year switches with no explanation as to why. But anyways, so yeah, mid 90s, let's just say, and we see a much older Brooks from Kong Skull Island. They had recently discovered a recording, and Brooks's son Aaron had recently gone missing, and as it turns out, this recording is from him. So essentially, Aaron didn't believe in his father's belief of Kong, that Kong is the one to keep the natural balance on Skull Island. He thinks that, Kong can't die, so there should be some kind of second line of defense. And he also name drops Sarazawa, saying that he disagrees with both of them. So he takes a group to Skull Island, and of course, given that we are dealing with the Lost World type of story here, things go wrong, their plane goes down, and now they are trapped on Skull Island. Eventually they run into the Iwi, one of whom can talk because his father was taught to speak English by Marlowe when he was with their tribe. So they get to the Iwi village, and one of the members, Riccio, drinks healing juice, something to that effect. But he gets hooked on the stuff, and he starts to either see visions or hallucinations. It's never specifically stated which it is, because it's stated that the villagers believe that he's seeing visions, but we also see as the comic progresses that he's losing his mind. But essentially what he sees is the origins of Kong. That before the Iwi came to Skull Island, it was the skull crawlers versus the Kong species, until there were only two left. And then that's when the Iwi came to Skull Island. And this was pretty cool. And I know Donnie will love this. Kong was born as his parents were fighting off skull crawlers. Raining and lightning and all that. And so baby Kong gets to see his parents die in front of him from skull crawlers. So we do see that. Now, for those who know the movie, Hank Marlowe said something that contradicts this. According to him, the Iwi were already on Skull Island and had to, and were being attacked and eaten by the skull crawlers until the Kong species started protecting them, or at the very least fending off the skull crawlers. But like I said, it's not specifically stated whether or not what Riccio is seeing are hallucinations or visions. Personally, I lean more towards hallucinations, given obviously his deteriorating mental state. but the intent could have been that he was seeing visions. Again, it's not specifically stated, but given that, I mean, honestly, it could go either way. You could chalk it up to Hank Marlowe, misinterpreting their history, or something lost in translation, or the iwi, when that story was passed down, details were lost or changed. You can honestly go with either story, but we have no reason to believe that Marlowe was wrong in his telling of the story. So I would just chalk it up to what we see. Well, for the most part, what we see in the visions/hallucinations are wrong, but there are a few things that I would say actually happened, like how Kong was born, for instance. But like I said, as Ricchio's mental state is deteriorating, he starts to see Kong as this godlike figure. And I mean, in terms of a zealot. So the way the way Kong's birth is portrayed could also be chalked up to how he wants to see it, and then that just influencing the hallucination. Either way, Riccio, thanks using the seismic charges left over from the movie, blows up the Iwi's wall, so that way, the monsters of Skull Island can come in. To see if Kong really is their protector. Sure enough, Kong does. And through there, Aaron's mind is changed on Kong. So and feeling that he is responsible for what the hell happened here, he sends off the recording, having faith that it'll reach his father so we can help the Iwi rebuild. So there was that. And it ends with Brooks maybe heading to Skull Island to see his son, but we don't know for sure. He just jokingly hints at it. So what do I think of Skull Island? So what do I think of The Birth of Kong? Overall, I really liked it. I don't think So this does very much what the film did, and, well, okay, I was gonna say, like the film, it's an ensemble. It has an ensemble cast instead of a main character, but that's not true here. Aaron is very much the main character. And Riccio is also a major character too. He's the antagonist. The rest of the group, the rest of the Monarch group, they're really only there to get killed off. I mean, this comic is only like 4 to 5, I think just 4, it's like 4 to 5 issues, so not a lot of time to develop the characters, unlike, say, a little over 2, or like a 2-hour movie could. I mean, they're fine enough. I mean, at the very least, Aaron is an interesting character, and Riccio, of course, going batshit insane is interesting to read. But yeah, the characters... And... yeah, I will say this. And I do think the story is also good, too. Getting to see Brooks' son, knowing that, him and Son not only got together, but had a son. It's nice to get that progression. And it's also nice to see more of Skull Island. Really develop the place. See more of the creatures that inhabit it. This is... Even with this comic, this version of Skull Island isn't my favorite. I still really love it, but I'd say the 05 version still is the best in terms of visual, or maybe there are still several Kong or King Kong comics I need to read, so may change to that. But in terms of film, '05 still has it. But yeah, we get to see more. We get to see new creatures, and we get to see returning ones, like the spiders. The skull crawlers only really show up in Ricchio's hallucinations, but still, it's nice to see them again, being as terrifying as ever. And the end. Cool thing about this is that getting the paperback get to see these reports on the creatures of Skull Island, which is, of course, a really nice touch. Some nice world building. Nice world building here. So, if you like Kong Skull Island, I would recommend the book. And if you like the Monsterverse, I would also recommend reading it. Oh, I forgot to mention, the stuff involving... Oh, by the time... Or the framing device of Brooks finding his son's recording takes place in 2012. Just so you know, timeline placement of the framing device. But yeah. It's not a prequel, it's a sequel, and the prequel elements are just visions slash hallucinations, but more so leaning on hallucinations. So, there's that. And also, if you want to see more of Skull Island, then that's a big reason to pick it up too. So now moving on to Godzilla Aftershock, the prequel graphic novel to King of the Monsters. And I should also say that I do find it weird how The Birth of Kong was released in single issues, while all the other prequel comics, including the ones for Godzilla vs. Kong, are graphic novels. I mean, and it's not a problem, I just think it's interesting. They did it that way. But Godzilla Aftershock takes place a few months after 2014. And because this was obviously being released before King of the Monsters, this would be our proper introductions to a few characters. Emma Russell, Jonah. And, okay, so plot is essentially a new monster emerges, named the Jinshin Mushi, or later on dubbed the Muto Prime. Now, the interesting thing about Muto Prime, or Jinshin Mushi, is that, at least from what the characters can gather, and I would just chalk this up to actually happening, is that, and this also adds on to the life cycle. We find out more about the Muto life cycle through this comic and through the Muto Prime, is that this Muto Prime fought a Godzilla, a member of Godzilla's species who the natives called Dagon, and infected him with, just say, her eggs. Now, Dagon would become... We find out that Dagon is the Godzilla fossil, or skeleton, we see in 2014. The one who had or housed the male and female Muto. So, yeah, this graphic novel does a lot, or explains a lot, goes into detail on things that, quite frankly, you think they would say for a movie. I remember, seeing that scene for the first time and thinking, "Oh, that's really cool." And of course, I didn't think we would actually see how that happened, but we do here. I mean, it does feel good. And I would definitely say this is one of the reasons the MonsterVerse is, quite frankly, the best cinematic universe we have right now, is that they're actually not only utilizing, you know, mul- the multimedia aspect of it, but the non-film fiction is actually doing like is actually doing stuff. Like more so than any MCU tie-in comic, especially any Star Wars new canon book or comic. I don't know, it just feels nice to not only get explanations for things from the movies, but have it be not only interesting, but have it be like important. Not important in the, oh, you have to read it in order to understand the movie, but stuff that just adds to the movie. Not only adds, but like just makes things far more interesting. Like, not only do we know how that Godzilla or Dagon got there, how he was infected with those two Muto spawn, but also we learn more about the Muto's life cycle. And we also find out that multiple mass extinctions throughout history were caused by the Mutos. And again, this is something I really like about the MonsterVerse so far. They introduce these original monsters, and even if they're killed off, such in the case as the Mutos in 2014, they'll still be utilized in the universe. Mutos are a good example. Yeah, both the male and female were killed off in 2014, but we also got another Muto in King of the Monsters, another female Muto. And in here, obviously being released before 2014, we get to see the next stage in their life cycle. And find out more about how they operate. It's really interesting stuff, and I'm so glad that they don't just forget about these original monsters. I mean, granted, given how many they introduced in King of the Monsters, we'll see if that keeps up. But in terms of the main, or the original monsters that actually get spotlight, happy so far. And even with the Skull Crawlers giving them, granted, hallucinations, but still, they do have a presence. So anyways, tangent aside, back to Aftershock. Godzilla chases the Muto Prime and eventually kills it. And I would say the thing that most people know about Godzilla Aftershock is it explains why his plates are different in King of the Monsters. Now, it doesn't explain what the other aspects of his design that are different, like the fact that he has, I think he has more toes in King of the Monsters, and just other things too. I think his claws are different. It's more than just his dorsal plates that are different in King of the Monsters. But still, how they portray it is actually really cool. Essentially, the Muto Prime emits a sonic scream that destroys his plates. So for a few pages, we get to see his back essentially up in smoke. And how Godzilla kills Prime is essentially just shooting atomic energy out of his back. Really, really cool visual. And we also get to see the Siberian incident, which for those who are familiar with the Monarch timeline, that was released on, I think, Facebook, on social media. Get to see that. And yeah, all in all, this is also another really solid prequel comic in the MonsterVerse. We get to have proper introductions to Emma Russell and the terrorist Jonah. But, yeah, and also the monster action's really nice here, getting to see more of or learning more about how the Mutos operate. So, yeah, I would also recommend Godzilla Aftershock if you're a fan of the MonsterVerse, fan of Godzilla, etc., etc. So, oh, almost forgot. We also get Brooks is here. There's a scene where Emma is all stressed out and Brooks comes in, essentially telling her that, oh, you're working yourself too hard. I've seen that look in my son before he disappeared. And Emma says, oh, yeah, you got your son back. Or you found your son. Something to that effect. And essentially, it's just giving us a direct reference to, Birth of Kong, which, again, in terms of having a connected universe, I'm all for. From what I understand, the King of the Monsters novelization essentially finds a way to connect everything released up to that point. So I'm really excited to read that. But yeah, got connections here. The novelization of 2014 connected to Awakening. So yeah, I mean, so far, maybe besides a few weird continuity bits, I'd say overall, in terms of being a multimedia franchise that has a continuity, the MonsterVerse has done a pretty good job so far. And hopefully they continue it in the future. And hopefully the prequel comics will always be worth a damn. Time will tell, but for my next video, I'll be talking about Godzilla, King of the Monsters, both the film and novelization. I wish the prequel comics for Godzilla vs. Kong would release before the movie, but nope. Still, though, that's a movie that I'm definitely going to want to watch multiple times, so yeah. So, what did you all think? Do you think these prequel novels did a good enough job, or a really good job at expanding the MonsterVerse? Do you think they could have done anything better? Let me know in the comments section below. Until next time, this is Captain Henson, signing off.